can be bit players in another drama. And of course, it is rather interesting that one of the significant ET interactions that's reported is the reptilian, which would be a favored form of the jinn. Well, we come to Mothman at Point Pleasant. And I started speculating that mysterious creatures, if they are a favorite form of the jinn, might something like the Mothman wave have been jinn-generated, or at least jinn-dominated. Now, when you consider what all went on in that wave, Mothman actually being only one of a cast of very strange characters that plagued a lot of people for a little over a year. The characteristics of Mothman, and in fact, flying humanoids in general, fit the jinn scenario. It's a weird form. It's an upsetting form. It sort of looks like us, but it's not. It's scary. And yet the Mothman entity almost exhibited more of a curiosity about people than hostility, as terrifying as the appearance of it was. This is characteristic of a lot of jinn who are curious about us. Like some fairies, they might want to just follow us around and learn some things about us, or play pranks on us. They're not necessarily terrorists so much as they are pranksters. But Mothman seemed to be very curious about people, flying after cars, looking at them, showing up on lawns, more like spying on us than acting out against us in hostile and aggressive ways. And yet, what else did we have in that way? We had a lot of UFO activity. That's also very characteristic of intense haunted areas involving mysterious creatures. Entity contact experiences. You just heard Susan talk about the famous Woody Derenberger case. And the men in black who pestered people and harassed people. Now, I know there's a lot of controversy about Men in Black, and did Gray Barker really cook a lot of it up? Were some of the cases more embellishment and fantasy? But yet the phenomenon of these like living shadow people, there seems to be such a similarity between the shadow person and the man in black, and the jinn and the shadow person and the ET. All of these things kind of come together in a very interesting mix. And what's the purpose of it all? To upset people, to cause problems, to create havoc, to unbalance, to keep people off guard. Shadow people often look like tall men wearing coats and hats and that old style fedora hat, or sometimes they're like Abraham Lincoln hats. But very similar to the appearance of Men in Black, except they are totally in black. And there were quite a few Men in Black cases during the Mothman wave as well. In fact, Susan has talked about her own experiences before. I'm now working on a book on Mothman to update the whole Mothman scenario, and I've been collecting some interesting Men in Black. Well, you know our two guys here, John Frick on the left and Tim Frick, and you've probably seen the poster and the t-shirt, and Andy Colvin was speaking earlier today. I'm very pleased to say that I provided the original photograph for this that Andy very artfully manipulated. But the Men in Black, again, this would be a favorite form of the jinn, something that would be very weird and very upsetting to us that we could never figure out. So a lot of things went on in the Mothman wave that would suit the jinn agenda to create havoc, upset, turmoil, no logical answers, and things start suddenly, create maximum pandemonium, and then end suddenly without any answer. And yet we have this lingering, ongoing reports of sightings and experiences, other cases of the flying humanoids, many cases of Men in Black, part of a strange interaction that we really haven't been able to figure out. This could be part of the jinn agenda to just interfere with people, and in the process of interfering with us, This generates a lot of emotional response that is an energy that I think is used by other entities for their own advantage. So it's, in a way, it's a weird form of vampirism, but it could be one of the scenarios at play here. In other words, some of the things that we think are going on may be much more complex under the surface. Now, we can also communicate with jinn. I've communicated with them in the cases I investigate through EVP, through the real-time EVP known as the Ghost Box or Frank's Box, and even the Ouija board. And they will identify themselves, they will reveal themselves, and most of the time their attitude is one of condescension. Now, mind you, I'm talking about a small portion, well, it may not be so small, but a portion of the jinn world. I don't think that we can say that they are uniformly hostile to us. We can't say that really about any sort of entity, that every single entity is all the same way that human beings are not all the same. We have malevolent, evil human beings, benevolent human beings who try and help, human beings who really don't care about a lot of things one way or the other. Well, entities are the same way. But when the jinn communicate, it is often with this condescension that we are inferior to them, going back to the old creation story, and they consider us to be intruders on what was originally theirs. And some of them make it very clear that they want it back, they want us to leave. They're not interested in peaceful coexistence. I have one case, not very far from here in fact, that's been going on a very long time, where we've tried various ways to dislodge the entity. It's been unsuccessful. We've tried striking a cooperative deal, like you leave us alone, we'll leave you alone. And it's sort of like having a house and some pests move in, like mice. And the mice say to you, hey, you know, we kind of like to live here too. We won't bother you if you don't bother us. Well, understandably, your attitude is, no, this is my house, you're the intruder, and I don't want you around at all. And that is the attitude of some of these entities. I have another case from upstate New York, where the people involved have tried Catholic, Protestant, shamanistic, Buddhist, Taoist, Wiccan, pagan, and general occult exorcism techniques, and nothing has worked. The most effective was a Taoist priest who came on the property for 2 days and did some elaborate rituals. And when he was done, he said, well, I cleared about 15 entities off your property, which was 26 acres. And he said, but there's one that won't go. Well, we knew who the one was that wouldn't go. And he said, I think you will find that things will be quiet for a while, but your land is open and they will be back. That's exactly what happened. The one entity, the jinn, never left. Things were quiet for about 3 months, and then activity kicked up again. Very weird things. I'm telling the story of that in my next book, which is tentatively titled Jinn in America, which will be out next year. And as I mentioned earlier, there are some things that people don't seem to be able to affect, which is very unsettling for us. We like to think that this is our domain. We have dominion over it, and if we don't want something around, we can make it go. And that's not always the case. I think that many of these cases are jinn cases. So here are my 2 main websites. VisionaryLiving.com is my main website, JinnUniverse.com. And the page that I think is very important to look up if you go to the Jinn Universe site is Tell Your Jinn Story, where we have these dozens of people from all over the world talking about their experiences right now with these entities and how they have tried to counter and cope with them. I have probably about 5 minutes for questions. Any questions about the jinn? Maybe we could have the lights back up.
Rosemary?
Yes.
You had mentioned using the Ouija board. Now, one of the main caveats of the Ouija board is that you can't close the door once it's been open. What do you do to close the door, or
The question is, especially if you're using a Ouija board, how do you close the door once you've opened it? Well, in fact, Michael, I'm working on a book on the Ouija board, and I think it's been rather maligned, actually. It's a spiritual interface. It's a tool that we use to contact the spirit realm. And it does seem to have its own peculiar problems. It goes wonky, and people do have troubling things that once they come through, it's very difficult to get rid of them. But I treat the Ouija board like I treat the Frank's box, like I treat EVP, anything that I've done automatic writing, I've done channeling, that there are ways that you close yourself down. You can learn them actually, and I recommend this to people. If you want to learn how to open yourself up and assess psychically your environment and then shut yourself down so that you're not impacted later, energy healing study is one of the best ways to do this. A beginning class in Reiki will help you quite a bit. You don't have to be an energy healer, but you will learn a lot of techniques for opening and assessing, being accurate, and then shutting down. Daily practice of meditation will help you do this as well. And then people have varying degrees of elaboration for closing a session. When I close a session, I formally say that I am in charge of the session, I'm closing it, and that everything is to leave and not remain. And do they get past that? Yeah, they can get past it. I've had them get past it. And then you have to take other measures then to send something away. Many people find the Ouija board is problematic, and so consequently I do not recommend it as a general tool for most people. I've never had a problem with it myself, and when I was experimenting with communicating with the jinn, I tried a bunch of things, and I wanted to try the Ouija board as well. Actually, the tool that I found worked the best was the Frank's box, or the ghost box, the real-time radio suite EVP. They will talk through the Ouija board as well. But you have to be very firm about it. Some people employ prayers, some people follow magical rituals. I recommend to people that they find whatever they feel gives them a grounding and a center of strength to operate from. And that's what's going to be effective for you. But it's very important to have something. And a lot of people run into trouble in the paranormal by jumping into it without any precautions or and sometimes not very much information about how these realms interact with us and impact us. And that's when trouble begins. Anything else? Yes?
You talked about the jinn and their involvement with the soul and the temple. You think the jinn may be involved in some and those structures that we have?
The question is, were the jinn involved, have they been involved in ancient megalithic structures? It's certainly possible. I haven't really done a lot of research. Like I've been to Stonehenge, Avebury, Karnak, a lot of these megalithic structures, and they are collectors of energy, most definitely. And I think that they have the potential to be used by a lot of different entities for interacting with people, and people have used them as interfaces as well. So it's possible, but I haven't. Now I have done a lot of research in the stone chambers in New York State. These are like a lot of stone chambers from Ireland. They may be very old. They were here when the colonists got here. Even the Native Americans didn't know who built them or what they were for. And these seem to be hotspots of paranormal activity, either the way they were built or where they were sited or both. I have had apparitional experiences, shadow people experiences. We've had some of the people I've worked with hooded phantom monks. We've had shapeshifters, strange energy forms, and I do believe jinn experiences there too. In fact, some of my best box sessions, ghost box sessions with jinn communication have occurred in these highly charged places. So they're definitely interfaces for interacting with a variety of things. Okay, I don't want to, been running slightly behind all day. I want to hold a schedule as best as possible. So if anyone else has any questions, I'll be at my table the rest of today, out in the vendor area, and all day tomorrow. And I thank you very much for your attention.
Let's give Rosemary another round of applause. All right, real quickly, we're waiting on our next speaker to come up. I want to remind you the rest of the evening, that's what we going on. At 6 o'clock here, they will be screening the movie Eyes of Mothman. If you have not seen that, please, you do not want to miss it. I saw it here last year, and I